Hey, what's up? This channel has been host to some pretty substantive discussions of the theory and practice of vegan activism. There are several videos just in the critique of DXE, Direct Action Everywhere. I've got at least one video critiquing Gary Francione and his methods, and so on. I mean, it adds up to a couple hours. In this video, I am going to try to summarize the positive message to take out of all that analysis. But I'm also going to try to deepen and broaden the discourse a little bit, because it seems to me a very large number of people coming to this channel are shocked, just shocked at the contrast I present between political activism and lifestyle advocacy. I mean, many people feel that many people in the current generation who spend their time on the internet feel that the only valid form of activism to advance veganism and ecology is to glorify a certain kind of lifestyle, to convince people that they will be beautiful and healthy and happy if they become vegan, and primarily to convince them by portraying oneself as tremendously beautiful, healthy, happy, vital, athletic, etc. There's a link below this video to a sort of debate between Dr. Steve Best, I guess Professor Steve Best, and Gary Francione. Now, it's just a lecture from Steve Best, but within the first 10 minutes, you'll hear him contrasting his views to Francione very directly. I think that part is worth listening to. You may or may not choose to listen to the rest of the video. Actually, it amuses me somewhat because Steve Best commits many of the same sins that he accuses Gary Francione and his followers of committing, including the sort of facile misrepresentation of historical episodes to suit his own argument and this sort of thing. But hey, it is demagoguery in the truest sense of the word. And, you know, even though I disagree with Steve Best on probably every single point he makes, I still appreciate that he's getting up there on stage and, presenting his argument fundamentally for how to save the world, because that's how he sees it, right? Look, when I talk about political activism, and I do not mean this in a shallow way, the fundamental challenge I've been presenting to people here is to ask, is this effective activism for you? All kinds of examples have come up here. But if I have someone writing me an email saying that he feels like he's wasting his time by standing in front of an airport, holding up a sign and shouting slogans at complete strangers, and, let's say he's an architect. Yeah, you know what? You're probably wasting your time. In earlier videos talked out at great length, but yeah, that's what it boils down to. You know what? You feel like you're wasting your time? You feel like you could be doing something more effective? I think you're right, and here's why. Again, whatever. It's a 30-minute video, I think, the discussion that spins out of that. Because the discussions are not simple. It really is different if you're living in a Western democracy like Canada or Germany than if you're living in communist China. The type of political agitation and advocacy and organizing that you can do. It's different if you're living in one place short-term as opposed to long-term, if you can actually build a unit. It's different if you're working alone or if you have just 5 people you can really cooperate with. And ultimately it's different because you are unique. You may be an architect, you may be a construction worker, you may be an athlete, you may be a bikini model. An incredibly small percentage of the Earth's population are bikini models, but some people are. That's your job, and that's your form of advocacy. I can sympathize. I can relate to that. But not everybody is a bikini model. Some people are university professors, and some people are university students. And some people live in the city and some people live in the countryside. And they've all got to ask themselves, what is the way I can be effective in agitating for social change, starting from where I'm at now and looking ahead at the next 5 years of my life and wanting to lead a meaningful life myself and wanting to feel like I'm making a meaningful difference. I had one woman writing to me who was involved with forestry in Germany. So obviously this is more rural than urban, and a whole different set of political issues related to habitat conservation, deer populations, wolf populations, bear populations. Really refreshing to hear about that, frankly, compared to the debates I'm getting from people who just want to promote a vacation on the beach in Thailand, as if this were the apogee for effective activism. So again, as a kind of wake-up call, even though I do not agree with Steve Best, I am anti-violence, and Steve Best's argument, as he puts it himself, is pro-violence. I think it'd be a wake-up call for a lot of the people on this channel to click on that link and hear that debate, in contrast to this debate that has lately been hosted on this channel. So look, I really do think that activism can mean very different things to very different people in different contexts. And political activism is going to be connected to how you live your life and your personal identity as you present it to others. Let's say, this is building on an example I mentioned in half a sentence earlier. Let's say you own a small hotel in Thailand and you're struggling to be a vegan and you're struggling to get recognition and respect from the members of the vegan community around you. Okay? You're a Westerner. You're not ethnically Thai. You don't really speak the Thai language. You're an English-speaking Westerner living in Thailand. What can you do? Actually, I've had a couple videos really talking specifically about the political conditions in Thailand and the potential to make something happen through digital veganism. But here's what I'm saying right now. You have the stability, you have the money, you have this small hotel you're running. Let's say you talk to an illustrator, you talk to a publisher or a print shop, and you decide to make a children's book. All right? Here's my concept for a children's book. It's called Why Little Joe Can't Eat Ice Cream. It's a book for children and for vegan parents to read with their children. And it deals with the difficult fact that if you're raising your kids vegan, if you have a kid growing up vegan, all the other kids eat ice cream. Why can't I eat ice cream? Ice cream looks harmless. Whatever, it's this white solid, or sorry, if it's chocolate, it's brown, but it's this, amorphous mass. If you look at a dead crab on a plate, you can see it's a dead animal. It has all its moving parts. It has eyes, it has legs, and so on. Ice cream in a bowl with colored sprinkles on it, it doesn't look like a dead animal at all. You can't see the harm it's doing. It's hard for adults to make that connection. It's really hard for children also. Can you write a children's book that just talks about a kid, maybe a kid trying to explain to another kid, hey, this is why I can't eat ice cream? And maybe you can have beautiful illustrations in there. You're not going to have gore. You're not going to have pictures of slaughterhouses or something. Maybe you can set out the case in a way that a child could appreciate, or that a parent can sit and read to a child. It says, yeah, you know what? It's actually meaningful to not eat ice cream, to not eat cow milk, even though when you go to school, it seems like everyone else is doing it. That's an artistic challenge. It's a challenge as an author. Obviously, it's all going to be written in simple sentences. If you were doing this and you own a small hotel in Thailand, get it translated. Print it with English and Thai. And there's so many ways to print a book. You can do it over the internet. You can do it by working with a publishing house in person. Doesn't matter. That side of it costs you next to nothing. And, you could have a stack of these books at your hotel, and every so often you either sell them to somebody or give them to somebody. And you say, yeah, I took the time once. I took a couple of months. I worked with a talented illustrator, and we made this book. And over time, people will meet you, and they'll remember you, and you'll be the guy who made that book. That becomes part of your identity. And, in some ways it's fleeting, but in some ways it lasts forever. Standing on a sidewalk, holding a sign and shouting, I can say both good and bad about it, I've said in an earlier video, a lot of the effects really are more like a rally. It's more like a benefit for the participants themselves than it is changing anything for the public. I'm not going to digress into talking about street protests here. There's a lot to say about it. And I have already said a lot. It adds up to a lot of minutes. But yeah, something creative, something durable, something that shares, a useful message with an audience that wants to hear it. And that book we're talking about, it's unlikely to fall into the hands of anyone who's a non-vegan or doesn't want to read it. It's not even public education, right? This is a form of activism that has almost zero risk. And the only risk would be if the book is a bestseller. Now you got problems in your life. But assuming you sell a small number of copies, and probably you're mostly going to sell copies through your own social network, through people who find out about it. But boy, that could be something really meaningful and positive that changes your life, that changes the way the people around you regard you as a vegan, as a potential activist. And it could form the basis for more organization, more meaningful connections and cooperation with people around you. So yeah, the point of this video was to ask you to open your mind a bit, broaden and deepen how you think about activism, whether it's the contrast between Steve Best and Gary Francione, or the contrast between so-called lifestyle veganism and political action. Ultimately, yeah, we're all struggling to find a form of activism engagement which is compatible with our lives and that brings meaning to our lives, short-term and long-term.